Welcome to Creative Labs by Alchemy, a podcast from alchemymerch.com that explores the lives of creators and their experiences bringing their art to the marketplace. Hosted by Greg Kerr.
Well, welcome to Creative Labs. I'm here today with Nate Bear, aka BEARBRAINS, and I wanted to talk to him because I came across his art probably in 2016. We worked together, we made some pins, and we've kind of crossed paths a little bit over the years, but I've been following his art, and he's really jumped into NFTs and digital art. And that's something that I think a lot of people that within our community are really interested in and don't really know anything about, or maybe you're really confused about it. And so I'm hoping that Nate can kind of help shed some light, talk to us a little bit about some basics, how he's gotten involved in his kind of journey along with NFTs. So welcome, Nate. If anybody's not familiar with what you do, can you describe kind of generally your art, the style, and what you're involved in?
Yeah, I agree. Glad to be here. I always have a hard time describing the style, but I would say this sort of like a Looney Tunes, Ren and Stimpy's sort of cartoony style mixed with like all sorts of other stuff. Try to bring that, like, I guess, my own personality and like update it and make that sort of stuff feel like something cool.
Well, now that you say with the Ren and Stimpy vibe, I kind of like pick up a little bit of that. When you were starting to kind of start your art journey, was that around that kind of time when Ren and Stimpy and those things were, what was that on MTV?
The original one on Nickelodeon, I definitely watched that. And then like they had like the VH1 like reruns when I was in college. So it definitely informed some of the stuff. But like I think like high school, college, I was kind of big into that. I think that's when they started making like the spin-off like webtoons. So I was and they had like a blog and all that stuff. So it just seemed like cool to me at the time, and definitely like influenced art. But I think slowly over time it's evolved into something else and doing my own thing.
Well, I've noticed, and you've got your bear character that I've kind of seen that sort of like continued on the sort of icon main logo. And I noticed, a lot of people, maybe they do traditional art, digital art. You've also kind of dipped your hand into doing animations and things like that. And how did you sort of bridge into going from, did you start interested in animations and were working on that and some of the 2D stuff came along with it? Or how did you get kind of involved in all that?
It's been like a really windy path. I think I probably was like, I think at some point I got the notion that I wanted to be like a fine artist, and then veered off the animation track in school or something like that. And then like after school I was like, oh man, I totally should have just been illustrator cartoonist, and then went back on that track, and then it's kind of like didn't know what I was doing for a long time, and just kind of like slowly more and more jobs would come that way, or like I would dip my toes a little bit more. Like I think I've always been like making like little animations here and there, and then I think a couple years ago I think I was making like like anime GIFs that would go up on Giphy, and I was like, oh, that got 1 million views. I don't know if that's good for Giphy, but yeah. And then
holy shit,
I had like I had like a couple billion views on Giphy on all my GIFs for doing like those like animated stickers for like Instagram and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, I don't get paid for this, but but that's something. Yeah, I can hang my hat on that. And so I started leaning more and more into this kind of like pushing myself with animation, and then like having like a portable like an iPad, or what I had the Surface Pro with the little pen, like just had something I could draw with on the subway. So it's like it's like, oh, I have like a little mini animation studio wherever I go. So that just kind of like gave me that freedom to keep experimenting, keep like fitting that in with the time every time, because I think I was doing a lot of digital illustration for clients. But yeah, I wanted to lean more into animation. And then like one client actually asked for an animation to promote one of the things. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. So it's like, I'm a professional animator now.
Well, if you've been hired for a job and been paid for it, that counts as professional enough,
Exactly. Yeah. And then more clients came along. And then NFTs.
Nice.
And it was like, oh, I think an animated GIF sold for like $500,000, and I was like, I know how to make gifts now.
Yeah, you're like, I had one that's been used 1 billion times and I haven't made a penny, so maybe this is something I should get into. You know,
exactly.
At that point, there's at least some people are using your art, liking your art. There's proof, you know, of kind of work there
like,
that, you know.
Yeah, there's Instagram stories out there somewhere where Kim Kardashian used a gift I made for somebody else. And I was like, you know, things like that.
Damn it, I wish I made royalties on that, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm either, you know, it's like there's like a hire me button on Giphy, and like I have gotten work out of that, like even this year. But you know, it's like kind of fractional.
Right. Most people that are using that aren't really going like looking to hire people. They're just using it, send or add and whatever. And in terms of like tools of the trade of what you're using, I know you said like using a Surface Pro, like tablet on the road. And then what kind of software are you typically using for doing you know, are you doing mostly kind of quicker animations like the GIFs, or are you doing, you know, or basically what kind of software tools you're using?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tools that you can do stuff with. Like Procreate is kind of like this like crazy Swiss Army knife of a tool now. Now it's got, you know, they had the animation a couple years ago, and then they add 3D painting on this year. But a lot of times things will start on there because that's kind of like my sketchbook now, is because like I just really like, you know, the pencil tools that I built in, the ones I've customized. So like that's kind of like my doodle spot now, more so than even sketchbooks. And sometimes, you know, I'll just be like, I just want to see what this thing looks like when it's moving. So I'll just switch into animation mode and just like add a few frames. And then if I realize it's going to get more complicated, I'll move it into a different app like Rough Animator, or you know, and sometimes I'll have to like layer some stuff in After Effects because I'm like, I don't know how to do this effect manually.
Right.
But then I also don't know how to draw in After Effects, so I just mash them together. And I think it's what After Effects is supposed to be used, but I know.
So I know you said something about going to school, you know, and I went to art school and graduated, and I don't even know what year it was, 2005 or something at this point, you know, or 2004. I don't know, you know, things have changed so much since my art degree. Is it kind of similar when you were, like I said, you went?
Yeah, because I think I started as like an illustration major at SVA, but the first year they always make you do, like, no matter what your intended major is, they make you do fine art for like a year. And basically it's like painting class, a drawing class, an experimental drawing class, a film class, a sculpture class. Even if you're like, I just want to make, you know, cartoons or whatever, they make you do all that. So I learned oil painting, all that jazz, you know, a lot of still life stuff. But then I kind of got into it, and like, you know, they give you like a real good like crash course on like art history and like why all those things are important. And, you know, I definitely, you know, sort of like touched my soul, and it's like, I want to make these like important stuff. So then I switched into the fine art track and kind of like did all that. But then by like my senior year, I was drawing like life-size like comic strips on the walls and stuff like that. And it was like, you know, and then sort of like doing like a little bit of like a pop art, a little bit of my cartoons, and basically just like painting cartoons.
Right.
And then as soon as I got out of school, I was like drawing, you know, like comic strips and like making web comics and making zines and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I guess I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, the fine art thing, I went for digital arts or whatever they consider at the time, which essentially, but I was like making things kind of in Photoshop, but then I ended up projecting them, and I was into doing things big too, because I'm like, whatever, you know. And I had to take the train to school, so I'd be taking the train with like a bunch of like 4 foot by 2 foot pieces of like wood I was painting. Ridiculous stuff, but
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a fine artist. I'm definitely not at this point. I'm not even like a stick figure artist. I don't think, in terms of like, I can fix people's art, but in terms of drawing from scratch, my abilities have just completely gone out the window. From like lack of use, kind of. But send me something in Illustrator that needs like the curves fixed and things like that, and like just generally cleaned up, I got you covered, you know. But the eye hasn't gone, but exactly. And the one thing you said, like, about the core kind of fundamentals, like, I think the thing that at least I picked up too, like, learning about that kind of stuff was like really developing an eye was something that carried, regardless of the medium that you're working in, kind of learning and understanding that there's so much value in that. I think a lot of that gets kind of skipped over nowadays. There's not much of a need for people almost to go to school anymore for art. You know, it's like everything's kind of right in front of you that you can do on your own. which I think was probably different when we were looking at going to college,
Yeah.
But yeah, so sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like I think a lot of like the data and the knowledge is out there now. Like, but I think for me it was just helpful to have that immersion where like, they're like forcing me to go to like 30 galleries and in Chelsea like every week just to like see what's going on out there and like understand those things and understand the context and so it's sort of like there's the rigor of that besides like and the critiques and blah blah blah. And, like I'm not sure like you can find like the facts and the histories and stuff online, but like I don't know, yeah, it was just something about that whole experience that's a little bit different. But that's also also kind of like what we had back then. So
yeah, well, that's it. You couldn't really just like YouTube a tutorial in Photoshop on how to do X, Y, Z. Like watch it, walk through it yourself, and be like, okay, cool, I got it. But it's funny you said something about the critiques. I think one thing, the lack of ability to kind of take constructive criticism. I think that's one thing that going through school or some kind of program like that does sort of build up in you a little bit, is that like how to take constructive criticism and like improve your work and see things. Because, when you're looking at it so close all the time, you don't always see what might be lacking or what's not reading right or conveying or whatnot. But, but like I said, kids probably don't need that anymore. So you're doing the animations, you're still doing that. And then all of a sudden, NFTs, crypto, all this kind of stuff sort of starts to blow up. I mean, how do you get involved with NFT art, and like what was your entry into all this entire world with it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think which came first, because I think I found out about NFTs about the same week that I like got an invite onto Clubhouse. So like I know it was like like Valentine's week of 2021. That was this year, Jesus. Anyway, so in February, I just remember like one of my coworkers had like given me the invite and just like I don't even use this like I don't even listen to podcasts and this is just like too distracting. But I have this invite. Could if I want. I'm like I heard it's things are happening there. I think there were rooms on it, but I think probably I remember going into like some like art focused rooms. They might have mentioned a couple of times, but I think it was kind of like there was a headline about Nyan Cat, and I think people had done one of his first sales like really recently. But I definitely and I was in there was freelancing doing like animated GIFs for another company that does like GIFs for like political campaigns and stuff like that. So it was like doing like a vote Biden and it was like stickers and stuff like that for like all fall. And so they had like a little Slack channel. I was like, hey guys, you can like we could be like selling this thing. That could be sort of funny even for this project, And then people were like energy consumption, and I was like, okay, I'll think about it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. No, so it was like at that same moment, but I don't know. It was just like outside of that, like okay, maybe they are, but there's definitely something to this, and it's like there's let's look into the green blockchains and like how are they really that destructive and all that stuff. But I think I noticed there were Clubhouse rooms devoted to NFTs. Like I probably just started searching it, however you can search in Clubhouse, and I met and then there was some other artists that were like getting into it, and that were also doing like a lowbrow style of art, and they had formed like a lowbrow club, and so I started hanging out with them. We were talking, and we were all kind of like learning about NFTs together. So it was like I had like my other like like Slack groups and things like that, and like there'd be like one or two people that were like, oh yeah, I'm curious about NFTs, and then like so we were kind of a little bit figuring that out together, like flipping it. But then there was like this like crew of people that had like amazing art, and they were like we were all trying to like navigate this space together, and so that kind of like really super helped out. And I guess people learning, and we're making the same mistakes, and you'd be like, oh no, if you don't press that button, you're going to screw yourself. That's a little exaggerated, but I think like on OpenSea, that kind of like there was like a meme almost, because in OpenSea you have to like insert a piece of code into the URL to trick it into letting you do editions of art instead of single pieces.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But then there's another trick that you have to list them one at a time, because you'd be like, oh, list all 20 of them. But then you're listing them as a bundle, and then you're selling 20 of them for the price of one.
Oh, man.
And to a T, almost every person that tried to do that, like, made the same mistake. And we were like, so you just don't do that thing. And then like, oh, it says I'm selling 20. I did the thing.
Oh man. Yeah, I do want to ask you about, I do want to get into that side of it, like some of the specifics, because I was, looking on OpenSea. And so did you get interested in NFTs and then kind of learn about the sort of crypto side by default because you had to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah. I had some crypto, like I had like Bitcoin and Ethereum on like, on Robinhood, and like a few $100s in there.
Right.
Just doing okay. But I kind of like, I think I had a Coinbase already, but like, you just kind of just like, oh, I'll put a few bucks in there every once in a while.
Dipping the toes kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think the Wall Street bets had happened, and I kind of like was kind of interested in that. And it's like, I missed the boat on that. But I don't know. So it's kind of all cap in that same little period of time where I learned about all those things. But yeah, I definitely learned more about crypto and blockchain and like how blockchain actually works. Because I think up until that point, like all I ever heard was like, scammers, scamming people into buying shady coins and pump and dumps and
right
things like that. So I didn't know there's, so I guess just by default, like, I'm soaking up all the knowledge. I learned more about how blockchain actually works, and the technology is actually like super fascinating, and like the history of it. But you don't need to know that much to actually do an NFT. Just
right. So, it's really interesting. I've been trying to dive into and learning more about like smart contracts and blockchain and all that. Just curiosity. It's like the more I learn about it and read about it, and you're like, oh my God, application in this or that or that or that. And it's just, I think it's really fascinating in general, whether I don't want to learn, I'm not going to turn into a smart contracts developer. I have no interest in coding or anything like that. Although
not now.
Yeah, not now, but it's like I do. I kind of joked with my wife. I'm like, I kind of want to learn about it just so I understand it, like enough to do something basic, but not like real world application. Just kind of figure it out or understand the basics of it. Just kind of like how I know just enough HTML to like, get myself in trouble or things like that. Kind of thing. So NFTs, people were talking about it and you're kind of hearing about it. And then was your first introduction checking out like OpenSea? Was that the first marketplace or Rarible or?
Yeah, I think OpenSea and Rarible. Like I think because I think I sat in some NFT rooms for a week and they were explaining like the lazy minting on OpenSea, and I was like, okay, I want to do the cheapest way possible.
Yeah.
But I also knew it was kind of with one of the bigger marketplaces. So I think I initially I set up an OpenSea account and I set up a Rarible. And I minted my first piece on Rarible. And when you mint on Rarible, you can basically any piece you create, you can technically sell it on OpenSea. So I think I had listed for sale on both Rarible and it was like up for like an hour, and I was like, making my Instagram post to like promote it. And so then I was like, okay, let me press the sell button on. Oh, okay, I have to press sell button separately on OpenSea. So I pressed that, and then as I was making the post, it had sold in the first 3 minutes, and I was like, mind blown.
By somebody you didn't even know because you hadn't even posted yet.
Yeah, I haven't posted. Like there's like, oh, this is this person's first piece. It looks good. It's mostly valuable. I don't know. And like, I think the guy contacted me like months later, and I had like not that much interaction with him or like seeing much online, but it was like, what's the meaning behind this piece? And I was like, it's cool animation. But yeah, like I think I just was going through my Procreate and like checked like whatever gifs I thought were cool. And so there's one where like the bear head where it's like turning. So I think it was doing like a half turn. So I just like added a few more frames and like fixed it so it was like doing a 360.
Full 360, yeah.
And that was it. And I probably sold it for a couple $100, but the guy immediately listed for like 3 ETH.
Oh my gosh! Has he sold
I don't think it's sold yet. I'm not quite there yet. But
well, hey, whatever. If he can get 3 ETH, I guess in a sense that all of a sudden raises your, what they call the floor price, right? Like, which is basically. And I should probably say some of these terms in case people don't know. Like, floor price is essentially like the entry price for something. Like if you create. Maybe people have heard of like Bored Apes or something like that. And the floor price now is whatever it is, $300,000 or $400,000. And maybe they go up in value again and the floor price becomes $500,000. Right. It kind of like floor price.
Right. It's basically the lowest listed price that you can buy it now. Like you can, it's kind of like an eBay thing. Like, or at least OpenSea is like that, where you can make offers on things. Say, I want to buy it for 0.5. And they're like,
No.
I'm listening for 50. Sorry. So it's kind of like that's the lowest price that anybody has it listed as a buy now price.
Okay. And I did want to ask you, because you kind of briefly said something about editions and how an OpenSea could kind of make one. So, for people, I think NFT, it's like the NFT, the letter sounds like fine and people understand it. And the non-fungible token, what it stands for, is kind of like a weird, unfortunate name,
Yeah.
To kind of describe, I guess, I don't know the easiest way to describe it, but like something that's fungible would be maybe, let's say you've got, a can of soda, right?
Yeah.
And you've got another can of soda, 2 cans of Coke or whatever. Those are fungible. You can swap them and it doesn't make any difference, right? There's no inherent value to it. You can trade them out. But a non-fungible token is essentially something that's unique, right? Like something
right.
I'm trying to think so let's say you do an original drawing on a piece of paper that is an NFT in essence, kind of like it's non-fungible, but you make, I'm trying to think of like how to relate it for somebody that maybe you have a better way of
the way I think of it is kind of like, unique items versus like commodities, like a Bitcoin. Every Bitcoin is kind of like, it's all the same value. There's no, maybe the ones that were in the very first block at the beginning of the chain, like maybe those have something inherent to them that are more valuable in a sentimental way, but like essentially all the programs are just going to treat them the same way. But when you're creating a non-fungible token, it's actually built in the code. Like there's a maximum of 1 of these, there's a maximum of 20 of these. And like, because the blockchain, you can't really change what's on there. You can only add to it. So when you say there's only 20 of these, there's only 20 of them. And that's it.
So you can make 20 of, like, if you've got this single piece of art, you can decide that it's an addition of 20, almost like, for a lot of people that we work with, they might do enamel pins or things like that. And in theory, you're like, I'm doing a limited edition of 100 that are sequentially numbered.
Right.
You can kind of do an edition of 20 of 100 and release that once those 100 are gone. Is that still considered technically an NFT, or does that turn into
So they're different contracts, and different ways to do it. But it's essentially like all these things are sort of like ad hoc in a way. Like when you say that this limited edition pin, who knows? They can just go back to the same factory and print another 100. It's just because you say so. So it's kind of the same thing where it's like, but you at least on the blockchain, there's that transparent record of like this wallet that's attached to that's associated with this artist. The artist like created this wallet and says that everything out of this wallet is something that I created.
Okay.
So basically that's like your signature is like, but it's like even more so where it's like somebody could forge a fake signature, but like somebody would have to like hack into your account and like take over your wallet to like make a new piece of art from that wallet.
Okay. So if I take a Nate Bear, image that I have, or, that I've seen online, and it's a flat image, it's not an animation or whatever it is. And I screenshot it, I upload it, and I try and sell it as mine now. Is there anything that currently that's kind of like blocking or stopping that outside of it not being proven that it's coming from you,
it's there's a little both. Like on OpenSea, that's somewhat centralized. Like you can go to the admins of OpenSea and say, hey, this person's copying me. This is my copyrighted work. And, they do DMC takedowns. So like their whole collections that are kind of like, it's like we're doing Batman punks, and they're that's DC. You got to deactivate that. Like it's still on the blockchain. You still buy the token, but the pictures are not going to show up on OpenSea. And that just happens to be the biggest marketplace. So, I have luck in that case.
And for centralized,
but also don't steal from DC.
Yeah. Well, and you said centralized in there real quick. And again, like on like a low level side of it, like centralized there's like a company behind it, a corporation.
Right. Yeah. Like if you think about like, like Netflix is centralized, where like everything's coming from their funnel. Like if you want to watch a Netflix thing, you have to pay the Netflix subscription. It's coming through the Netflix internet pipes, and if they want to flip off the switch, the switch is off. But like the blockchain is decentralized in that the ledger is being recorded on thousands of computers across the whole planet, and they're all kind of have like the same data set, and they're all checking each other. And that's basically the blockchain in general. That's how it works. Is that you don't have to have a centralized bank or whatever checking to make saying this, Molly owes Sam $5 because because we say so. No, it's like if they made that contract on this set of public ledgers that it's like this $5 went over here and that's where it is, and everybody says, oh yeah, $5 went over there.
Right. It's interesting. I don't want to get like too crazy deep into it, so we could go for like days probably. But the argument, the centralized versus decentralized, because you look at a thing like OpenSea and so many people are using it, and it's this marketplace, but it also is allowing for them they can do takedowns when they're doing knockoffs, things like that. But it is centralized, and a lot of people that are into this space are like hardcore into decentralization or governance by a community where in essence, the community is in control of it, or, in essence, right? So, or there's not a singular company. Alchemy is a centralized company. Right. There's 6 of us, but technically we're like a centralized company.
Right. You want to use this branding, you have to go through that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Kind of thing. And so I think it's interesting, whatever, you can go into like so many holes of stuff with arguments for this and that decentralized. I see a space for companies like OpenSea on the market to exist and not having to be decentralized. Personally, like if I'm selling art, I want to maybe have somebody like something that's got my back. I don't know if a decentralized group would also potentially do takedowns. Who knows? But that's good to know kind of with OpenSea for people that might be interested or worried that if you put something up there that you could potentially submit if somebody's trying to knock off what you're doing.
Right.
Because I see on there, there's so much stuff that's derivative, of, mm-hmm. I don't know how many, whatever apes, there are versions of Bored Ape, even I think today I was looking on there and there was like, nuclear Bored Apes of and it has nothing to do with
and before that was like there's every kind of CryptoPunk knockoff or
right. It's like, hey, look, I can make pixelized art really quickly, and that's what this thing is. So but you're saying kind of like if you're putting something up, somebody can go look at your kind of artist profile on there and see the stuff that you specifically have generated, and if somebody's selling a piece of yours, they can also kind of check that out and be like, oh, this is actually one of Nate's.
Yeah. They can see it's like, oh, this, this page says like Nate Bear and has Nate Bear's art on it. And then, it's the exact copy of the JPEG that he made, earlier today. But, if you look closer, you can see that the account was like created like 5 minutes ago. And, and there was another account that is publicly associated with my name. So like, maybe I shouldn't buy it. So there's a lot of talk of like do your own research. It's sort of a wild west, but at the same time, like a lot of there's a lot of information out there to like if you spend 5 minutes to look into something, you could probably get somewhere close to the truth or at least see the origin.
And the blockchain is kind of it is showing like an origin and a tracing, right? With like a famous piece of artwork, like a famous painting. I forget what the technical term is for it, but the specific trail.
Provenance,
The provenance of a painting, is it like, how do I know this was actually like a real Van Gogh or something? And it's like the provenance shows that it went from this to this to this to this. And blockchain is kind of like a digital provenance in a sense, right?
Exactly. Yep. That word gets tossed around a lot. Yeah.
It's like, this is Nate's. He created it. Then it went to, Johnny, whoever, who sold it to Bobby, who sold it to Susie, who sold it to whatever, but it's still this specific one originated with Nate.
Right. So exactly. And it's kind of like just having that fingerprint, like, the artists that would put the thumbprint on their paintings. It's kind of just that thing where you can see that it's like, it's just something that is near impossible to fake because it's that one wallet that is associated with that one person or that one artist or that one company or whatever.
And like, where do you see because, you're getting into this and for your, at least with our crowd of people that tend to, that we work with, most of them work in some kind of digital medium, right. Maybe we have some people that do traditional art and we basically have to like make a vector or something for them, but the majority are using a tablet, they're using Procreate, they're using Photoshop, Illustrator, these different things. So getting into NFTs, they're already making digital art. They've already got that ability inherent. Right. So what are the kind of like the pros and cons or things that you see? Do you see this as a way of like artists kind of taking back control or gaining value in a sense? Like we went through a period, I think, where artists have been devalued a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's obviously no guarantees that anything's gonna be better, but I think probably like of like the dozens of artists that I've been interacting with that like got into the space around the same time as me, or like within the few months after, like I think just about all of us are doing better than we were in the beginning, one way or another. Some are making millions, some are making thousands, some are just getting started. But like I feel like everybody's been able to have some sort of success in the NFT space, and I think maybe because it's new and the market's not totally oversaturated yet, or whatever it is, just kind of I think there's if you're savvy enough and you think things through and don't rush into things or whatever. I mean, I rush into things. Okay. I didn't get my wallet drained or anything like that. I didn't like sign away too much. Yeah, I think if you got a good head, you can navigate the space okay. It's just like it's a new space, so there's like a lot of new rules and things like that. But like the pluses are like you don't have to ship things physically and things like that. Like it's kind of crazy where it's like, oh, I just like when things are going really well this past summer for my personal art, it's like I could just drop this JPEG this afternoon and make $2,000 and I don't have to ship anything. And then like meanwhile, my Etsy orders would pile up and it's
well, I made $8.
Somebody bought the thing for $10. I'm gonna get $3 out of it.
Right.
It's like the get out of bed money, threshold is just like it just feels totally different. And then the client projects where it's like, we're gonna pay you $2,000 for this. I'm like, a year ago I wouldn't that amazing, but it's like I can get $3,000 just for pressing this button right here.
Right.
Like I don't like I was trying not to. I probably should have made more at that point, but when everything was selling, but at the same time, it was kind of like I don't want oversupply, kind of thing. Like I was a little wary of that, so maybe it's good that I didn't want stuff to like one drop a week. And
okay, so you were trying to spread it out without getting like too greedy. I mean, the other thing too is you said your first one you put up was bought by somebody that's not directly related to you, but have you found that you've been doing art for years?
I got lucky because
you have a community, right? I mean, you already have built in, and I think a lot of the artists and people that we work with have a built-in community that are buying their products, physical products, follow their art, whatever that is. So have you found that having your own community that's existed has helped that early adoption, or have you been finding adoption happening more from being on the marketplace and people discovering it and kind of, in a different way?
A little both. The community is definitely everything, but it was definitely like a start from scratch sort of situation where like, I had built like 13,000 followers on Instagram, but like none of them wanted to buy NFTs.
Right.
Most of them didn't know what it was. And, like with the algorithms or whatever, it just, I think things are still there in general. Like, he has like, yes, I have thousands of followers, but then 100 people like my post probably, depending on
right.
And then I think so. It was sort of like building community on Clubhouse and Twitter and Discord, and just kind of like we start collecting collectors, as they say, where you like you find people that are interested, that are willing to spend the money or like do or see the value there, like because I think a lot of people are in for it for like the flip or whatever, and they'll see like, oh, this art is good, so it's more like a flip, so it's sort of like it's that perceived value thing where it's like obviously none of these snippets of code and JPEGs have like an inherent value, but like the whole thing is that somebody else is going to see something in it too, and it can snowball. So yeah, it's sort of thing, making relationships with other artists, and we show together, and slowly just kind of like people would see the art, and then like I had like one friend that just did really, really well and had a really great collector base, and like he retweeted one of my things, and that's when my stuff started selling. Right. It was just one thing, and then like it just happened to be like a large edition. Like I was selling a bunch of stuff for like $10 each, as like sort of like a gag on the on the Space Jam teams, and then they were like, all of a sudden there were like hundreds of people in my inbox being like, when can I get, because I think I was still listing it when he had retweeted it. And so I was rushing to like get everything listed one at a time, because that's the way OpenC works. And it was like, it was a crazy afternoon, but like I did notice like a definitely uptick in general after that. And I figured out how to navigate that better.
And then people that are like following you, and then maybe you do a new drop of something and they're more kind of apt to jump on it. It's funny when those things happen, sometimes like you don't really know what's happening, and it's oh shit, let me get back. I mean, I kind of took like years and years ago when I had my clothing line, like I literally found out an hour before that we're going to have a feature on a TV show, and like for about the brand that literally nobody ever told me about. And I was like, fuck, I don't have any inventory, like we're just like, I'm not ready for this. Somebody tweets and you're like, I'm literally posting this. Hold on a second. Like you don't have control. Yeah. It just happens. But I think a lot of artists already have a built-in kind of community, and not everybody really knows how to do an NFT or to like get one or do whatever. But have you found personally more coming from doing additions or from doing single pieces or additions?
I think the additions, if you keep it low and cheap at the beginning, it's a good entry point. And I think a lot of people they like to discover, like if that's your first piece and you have the network of other people that have been in the space, they'll probably, because I think what we did, we had the group of people that I met early on, there was Russ, aka Lurk Loves You. He started this group called it the Lowbrow Art Collective, and we all kind of, a bunch of artists in that same genre kind of gravitated towards it, and we're all kind of trying to do NFTs. And we have like a little DM group where, it's like, oh, I'm posting a piece, and then, people retweet it, and that, kind of gets out there. So I remember, start off, there was like 10 or 15 of us, and then 20, and then like 30. And then every time we kind of like invite somebody in, like, okay, I'm getting into this, and I'll make this NFT. And then like, we'd all kind of share it, and there'd be like, they're selling the pieces for like, like $100, $200 each, in that range. But, you sell 10 or 20 of them, it adds up. And
right.
That sort of thing. So I think people would kind of see like, oh, I like this art, and some people I can tell it's legit because all these people I follow are supporting it, and then it's kind of like it's the first edition. So if it takes off, this is gonna be this $200 thing, you worth thousands and thousands later on. So I think there's sort of like that little momentum, and then also that those few months, I think the market was doing really good. So
yeah, so people,
it was almost like you couldn't strike out at that point.
There's people looking, like as investments too. And if something like that is cheap enough too, and the art is good, they might say, fuck it, I'm going to throw a little bit of money at this, $50, $30, whatever, something, get in early. And if it takes off, awesome. If it doesn't, whatever, throw it a bunch of them. So I kind of wanted to ask with that, I've noticed too, like some of the pricing and whatnot, like obviously your pricing has like changed, but anybody that follows any kind of crypto in general can notice that pricing sways, right? And
yeah.
So are you kind of, when you're setting your prices personally as an artist, are you looking at it and saying, as of today's price, whatever, like or let's say you posted something, 6 months ago and, Ethereum was $2,000,
right,
whatever. And you post it for, I want one Ethereum for this. And now it's at 4,000. If somebody, like, how do you change your prices? Or if somebody were to offer you half of one, which at today's price is 2,000.
Yeah.
How do you manage that kind of?
Yeah, it is tricky, and I probably would say yes, depending on what's going on, like, or how much I felt the piece was worth, something like that. It's sort of like it is something hard to juggle, but I think the longer you're in the space, the more you realize that there's a saying that goes around. It's like one ETH is one ETH, because like I think there was at one point where people were selling stuff when the Ethereum was 2,000, then Ethereum was 4,000, and then they had this one ETH piece that was suddenly seemed twice as expensive, and they're trying to move it, and they're like, okay, I guess I'll reduce the price because it's something you can do. You can change the price on it,
right,
on the marketplace. then like within a couple weeks it pumped back up to over 4,000. Everybody's like, or went back down to 2,000. They're like, well, now my $2,000 piece is $1,000.
Right?
I really thought it was worth anything. Yeah. So there are things to consider, but I think the people that have been the longest and they're doing the most collecting, a lot of their pocketbooks are in Ethereum already, and they're once you start going that way, like you think less and less about the dollar value. And actually, there've been studies where that there's some sites like Nifty Gateway that will just show like the US dollar value, and that's kind of like front and center. And versus places that put the Ethereum value in, because the Ethereum is worth so much more. So it's like,
right,
I'm only spending 0.25. It doesn't feel like you're spending $1,000.
Right.
It's just 0.25.
So there's like psychological a quarter or whatever. Yeah. I've seen like on OpenSea, you can view it in basically I don't know if it's USDC or USD, whatever it is, basically.
The US dollar value. Yeah.
And an equivalent. And I like, so that can kind of give you an idea, because with crypto and stuff, it's fractionalized. So you can send somebody, a fraction of one. It's not like physical coin where it's like a penny, a nickel, it's like you can send somebody 0.002, Ethereum or whatever, the minimum cutoff is. I don't know what that is, but
right.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit, because there are different marketplaces. You can also make NFTs on different platforms, so you can do on
different blockchains,
different blockchains. And I'm kind of curious, for somebody that's starting out, like whether they are not aware, I mean, in general, kind of Ethereum is currently the biggest, most common one that people are using, and they might not know, but it's like, oh, Polygon like exists as a layer 2, on Ethereum, but when you're making an NFT, how are you deciding, like, what am I making this on? I've seen you've got some that are on, I don't know how to pronounce it, Tezos or?
Tezos. I assume Tezos. Yeah.
So how, like, what's making you decide, and are they interchangeable? Can you mint on one because it's cheaper or it's more environmental, and then you can still sell it,
Yeah, and that was my logic. Yeah, that was my logic when I was more active on Tezos. It's like, well, all the people that are saying stuff on the environment, you shut up, because this is the same energy as your tweets.
Right.
And it costs 3 cents to mint it, or whatever, 30 cents. And that was going good for a while. But yeah, everything's been like sort of like topsy-turvy. And I think it was, there've definitely been fluctuations. I've kind of just like, noticed people just kind of like flocking to the different platforms at different times, just based on like, where the action is, or like, like how the market's doing. Because like sometimes when you also have to factor in the gas use on Ethereum particularly, because it's kind of built that way. So like if there's a lot of trading action and the price of Ethereum is fluctuating a lot, and people are trading a lot, then the network fees just to make just to sell a piece, suddenly your $2,200 like NFT is going to cost like somebody $500 just to buy it. So they're not going to buy it.
Right. And for somebody that's not familiar too much with gas fees, in a really basic way, let's just say you do a transaction at a store and you get charged tax, right? And in Arizona, it's 9%, whatever it is. Now, imagine you go to purchase that, and that 9% all of a sudden becomes 20%, or it's like a moving target,
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, I think almost think of it like shipping fees, like it's the cost to get this from here to there, to get it from this wallet to this wallet. But it all depends, like when you're doing an Uber and they have like that surge charge, it's kind of like that, where like everybody wants to network, so you got to pay more to get first in line, kind of thing.
So can you use something like Polygon, which is still kind of like based on Ethereum, and reduce those fees and still kind of accept Ethereum? How to
it's all complicated, but it's like yes and yes. So Polygon's like a layer 2, so it's like its own blockchain, but it's kind of basically doing like the final, like the final little, they'll do all the transactions on the Polygon network, but then the last little bit, they'll just like, instead of doing every bit of the transaction, they'll just like write the final tally is going to go on Ethereum. but they just do it like one every 1,000 transactions is like a little piece of code that goes on Ethereum itself. So it's related to Ethereum, like use the same wallet as Ethereum, the same wallet address and all that stuff, and you can actually transfer tokens. So both Ethereum money or wherever the money and the NFTs can be transferred between the two networks.
Okay.
But the advantage is like while you're on the Polygon side of the network, you're paying much smaller fees. It operates much faster just because that's the whole point of its existence is like to make it faster and cheaper to do more transactions. But then like I guess but ultimately it's still kind of interacting with Ethereum.
Right. So is there any advantage or let's say like you're making and you're putting up a new NFT tomorrow, and you're going to put it on something like OpenSea. Is there an advantage to saying like, hey, I'm going to do it on Polygon versus Ethereum at this point? Like, would you just do it on Polygon because it's cheaper? Does that mean when it sells, somebody's going to pay less of a gas fee, things like that?
I'll wait for you. Sorry.
Did I? Yeah, I was just saying.
I heard you, but I was just waiting. You paused like right after your questions. I was like, yeah. So it is a tough question. I think, like you said, Ethereum is the big dog. So a lot of people are already on there, and then the way everything's set up now, it's like a couple extra hoops to like transfer Ethereum onto the Polygon network, and you're like, so there is a Polygon coin. But the way that most of the Polygon marketplaces work right now, like OpenSea, is that you're transferring Ethereum onto the Polygon network and using your Ethereum there. So it's the same. So you're not paying in Polygon. You need some Polygon for the transaction fees.
Interesting.
Which are really minimal. So it's like like 1,000th of a penny to like send something, but you still have to have like a little bit in your wallet to like.
So you would have to have Polygon and Ethereum in your wallet in order to buy or sell. Does that count? Like, and I guess from an artist side, right? Like, let's say you've got it set up for one ETH, to buy, and then somebody buys it. You obviously, these different places. OpenSea is going to take, a percentage, like a fee, things like that. But then are they sending that to you in Ethereum and that is in a wallet that you've connected essentially to it?
Yeah, so it's the same wallet. Like when you're doing Polygon, it'll just show up on the Polygon side of your wallet. And then if you want to, so like if you go on MetaMask, there's like a little thing that says like, switch network. And I don't think this is where all the hurdles are. Like Polygon's not one of the default ones. So you have to like manually add it and put an address in there and then switch that network. And then you have to use a bridge. And so it's like 5 extra steps, and people that are new to it's going to be like, speaking Greek on top of Greek kind of thing.
So just maybe, would you suggest for somebody that's newer? Because I think that's one of the kind of big hurdles now. It still seems, and with all the different wallets and different addresses, and you can only send like certain kinds of tokens to this wallet, and blah blah blah. Exactly. That's a really big confusing hurdle part of it. For somebody that's maybe starting out, would you say like, just do it in Ethereum, like, was it ERC20 token, or like, or just stick to like Ethereum or something for now, maybe, or like one thing to try and
it depends what's important to you. If you want, if it's important that you think your customers or you're going to bring new people in, you're not going to want to pay the fees. Maybe the Polygon is or Tezos or Solana or something like that is what you want to do.
And do they all each have their different marketplaces? Like, does Solana have a different marketplace? Like, I don't know.
Because
like
they're completely different networks.
One, but they're all totally different. Right? Yeah,
because OpenSea right now, primarily, like I think it has XDAI too, but that's still an Ethereum layer, I believe. So it's basically Ethereum coins. And then there are other marketplaces for Tezos. One doesn't exist anymore. And that was only, that's in a few months. It came out of nowhere and went to nowhere. And then, Solana's got, and they all have different, you have to have a different wallet for each one. And there's definitely like complications, but, sticking to it and learning it is definitely worth it.
You think worth it for people? Yeah. Cause like I said, It's really confusing. I mean, I'm probably got into the space in general, even crypto in general, probably on a similar path, of a retail path, and going probably from Wall Street Bets or something. I don't even remember, and then gotten to Coinbase. And before we kind of pop into a little bit of that kind of stuff, I do want to, one thing about NFTs, which I think is really cool on an artist side, is the idea that you can add royalties.
Yes, that is a powerful feature. And again, that's it's complicated, but awesome at the same time. So again, I guess when you get into anything like learning all the subtleties is just like part of it. Like,
right.
When people are learning how to do pins, they're like, oh, I have to put a border around every color.
Colors can't touch.
Things like that. Where like, oh, I have to make the lines have to be a certain width, otherwise it's not going to show. So there's technical things to that. And just same thing, there's technical things to NFTs, but at the same time, you're shipping the JPEG, so that thing you don't have to worry about like figuring that side of things. Like the art is the art, and what the file you make is what's going out to the world. But anyway, so the royalty is definitely an awesome, powerful part where you can set basically. Right now, it's on a per marketplace basis, but there are new protocols that are going to be more universal.
Working on it, yeah.
Yeah, they're working on it. So basically, the idea is that you sell your JPEG for, we'll say $100, but you can set the royalties to that to be up to 10%. 10% is pretty
okay. That's the max they let you do.
Yeah, so I think some marketplaces let you do up to 50, and if you're creating your own contract, you can do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, right? But that's a whole another.
That's it. We'll get there. But if you're using the marketplace contract and you're creating on that marketplace, usually 10% you can do it is the max. And then so you set that royalty, and then when somebody buys your $100 JPEG for $1,000, you get that 10% of $1,000, and you get another $100 basically out of it. So you basically made that that little commission off the resale. And then when somebody sells that $1,000 JPEG for $5,000, you get the $500 off it. So it can add up. And if you have a lot of things out there, then people are trading your stuff a lot, then definitely adds up. Like I think that the piece I told you about before, that I sold 100 pieces at $10 each. I made $1,000 in that one day, minus whatever refunds I had to do because I messed up some stuff. But then because it was $10, people were flipping it like really fast, and there was demand for it because people were going crazy for it that day. So I think I made $1,000 the first day, and then I think at the end of the month I got like another like $600 or $700 just from the resale, because like if they buy for $10, they're gonna they'll sell for $100. And,
right. Try and flip it. If you're gonna try and flip it, you want to make at least a certain amount of money on it. And I think, like you were saying, or at least and what I was looking at too, is it's very much like within that marketplace. So if the NFT gets taken off of that marketplace and listed on a different one, as of right now, that royalty is not not stuck to the piece of art. It's based off the platform.
Because with the NFTs, like they're executed by smart contracts, right? Which is the code that tells you that this is an NFT and creates an NFT and sets the rules of the NFT. But it only concerns itself with transferring the NFT from one wallet to another. That's all that the contract can do right now.
Right.
But the marketplace is the one keeping track of the sales and the royalties and who gets paid. That's still happening on the blockchain. It's just not on the contract of the art. So it gets complicated. So like you can go on Foundation and create a piece on Foundation. It'll show up on OpenC because OpenC aggregates all the NFTs on the Ethereum network.
Okay.
But unless there's an agreement between those two marketplaces, you're not going to get your 10% for something that gets bought on Foundation and resold on OpenC.
Gotcha.
And then
so it's definitely confusing on that side of it. It's like, and it's hard, and you don't have a way to control really that it's staying on a marketplace, right? And if you think about too, I know with these, or even the idea of split royalties, it isn't really a thing right now, right? Where you could split, let's say you are a band or something, and you want to sell, a token or pieces of future royalties of your record, streams and things like that. Currently, there's not a way to have like multiple people receiving royalties.
There is, but again, it's still kind of like in the market if the marketplace supports it. So like, I think you can have like known origin. I know it has it where, but it's like a new kind of contract. It's like 1159, or I can't remember them. They're different protocols. Like the 721 is a standard one of one NFT. And then the 1155 is the one where you can have multiples of the same NFT. You can say, oh, there's only 50 of these, there's only 10 of these. But people have to do additions in 721s. They're just like, this is 1 of 5, this is 2 of 5, and they're all separate.
Okay. So I did mean to bring it back and ask about that real quick, and then I want to move on to another project that you're doing. So you talked about additions, right? And you talked about you had to do like this word code initially and whatnot. So let's just say that I'm an artist that wants to today on OpenSea make an edition of 10 of something. What is my best plan of action? Do I, like I see that if you make it on like Polygon, I think like it seemed to say you could show an edition or have multiple, like what's the best way to do if you want to do an edition of something currently?
Okay. I would still say OpenSea. I say for now, OpenSea is your best bet in general, just because if you want to get those royalties, most of the secondary market is on OpenSea.
Right.
But then, it all kind of depends. Like maybe the best marketplace for you is Foundation or Nifty Gateway if you can get on there. Or some of them are invite only. But yeah, it kind of depends what you want to do. Like if you're focusing on one-on-one auctions, then Foundation is the perfect place for you. But if you want to do additions or smaller price things, or you want to do collectible, OpenSea could be good for that too. But it can also be good for one-on-one art that has auction support. It's always thing. But I would say for most people, I usually recommend, do an edition of like around 10, make them a little lower depending on what you think your value is. Like if you're a big time artist and you have a name and people recognize the name, even the people in the NFT space that don't know anything about the art outside of the NFT space, then you have that reputation where you can make a lot of friends in the space really fast and you can charge more. But usually like I would say like do an edition, do like a couple $100 each in that edition. And if you sell it, you're gonna make a couple thousand.
And you can do that at the point of creation. So can I create one item? I go on to make an item, upload the art, the information, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then I can say while I'm doing that creation, I want 10 of these.
Yeah.
So as opposed to creating 10 separate.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So there's on OpenSea, there used to be like a little code where you have to do it at the beginning when you go into the creation page. You'd have to add it to URL, and it's like enable supply equals true or something like that. But now that they have introduced Polygon, and Polygon, you can by default like kind of just switch it. Now the easiest way to do it is start creating your piece. If you want to do Polygon, switch to Polygon, make an addition.
Okay.
If you want to do Ethereum, switch it to Polygon, set it to 10 instead of 1, or whatever number you want to do, 25, 15, 100. And then switch it back to Ethereum, and then it's basically making an Ethereum edition again.
Okay.
Yeah, you basically decide whether, at the point you say create the NFT is when when you press that button, that's when it picks the network. Basically.
That's when you're deciding. And if you say, hey, I made 10, that's it. There's 10, right? I mean, the contract is saying there's 10 of these. That's what it is. Yeah. Like I said, I'm trying to think, like I said, from, artist standpoint, because, you've been able to take your digital art and kind of shift into this space and dip your toes and start to get into it of like accessibility of other artists. Like I want people to get interested to look into it, to be like, how can I make this work for me? How can I empower myself with this kind of thing? And so I want to talk about one of the, like a collection that you worked on called Space Poggers, which the site is spacepoggers.com or Space Poggers NFT on Twitter. There's 12,000 plus designs that you did the artwork for, which is
drew them all by hand.
It's fucking crazy, right? On the art side of it, that's just a tremendous amount of stuff. And we see, and people that might be into NFTs a little bit see these kind of collections, these 10,000 collections are a thing right now. Or, the crypto punk, the punks or the Bored Apes or or the Space Poggers, like this is kind of a thing. And as an artist, when you're getting involved with a project, I don't know, like how do you even go about making 12,000 pieces of, unique art in a sense,
Okay. Well, the the way it generally works, like the way CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, they kind of set that template. The way you do it is like you will have sort of like it's sort of like a paper doll style thing where you have like with the punks and apes, there was like a very set template of this is the shape of the head and the body, and we're going to draw clothes that fit on top of that.
Right.
Obviously, with the punks, it was easy because you just put 4 squares.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have basically a computer program that says, okay, here's all the traits. These are the different layers of these PNGs that are going to be stacked on top of each other. We're going to turn off this one, turn on this one, and the art's designed so that it all lines up. There won't be a problem. And it'll just kind of like make sure that you're not doing the same thing twice. Like you basically program, so it's like you're never going to have a blue ape with blue sunglasses and a blue background. There's only going to be one of them. But then the next one, it can have blue sunglasses and it'd be a blue ape, but it's going to be a purple background.
Okay.
People don't like that.
You're designing like all this stuff. So let's say there's, was there 12 different tribes involved, right? And they're different animals. So there's like turtles and, elephants and cats and things like that. So you're basically designing the 12 main kind of core factions, tribes, whatever it is. And then you're going in as the designer and you're saying, let me make some funky sunglasses and a mohawk and a tie, whatever, accessories, kinds of things, like I said, paper doll style. And then you're able to take that into a separate piece of software and say, mash up every kind of combination of these assets, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What are you using? Like if you don't mind sharing it, like what software would get used for something like that? Is that a blockchain kind of thing, or is that like
it can be done on chain? There are some projects where they'll say that it was like generated on chain, where they're actually using the randomization of the blockchain to make the combinations. Like it'll be, when you're minting, which is like the initial blind creation of the NFTs. Some collections will do it on chain, which I believe CryptoPunks were combined on chain. But then sometimes, I think in the case of Space Poggers, I believe they were generated beforehand, and then you just kind of like didn't know which JPEG you were getting next in the queue.
Oh, okay.
Or PNG, as it were. We like to say JPEG. We always mean PNG.
Yeah.
So there are different ways to do it, and like sometimes the art is completely goes in the blockchain, all that jazz. But for the most part, you can add some. Usually, like the people that can code stuff for the blockchain can also code something that randomizes a PSD file, or you just do a folder of PNGs and it can recombine it. There are like white label things out there now, like there's a like Nifty Kit has their own thing, and there's like I've seen something called it like NFTgenerator.com or or something. Yeah, and you can just upload or download the software and put your PNGs in there and set the rarities and all those things, and it'll spit it out for you with the right code and the metadata. But basically, it's just some software that randomizes it. And like, I think
so you're not in Illustrator with layers or Photoshop with layers.
Yeah.
Literally, personally, you with 12,000 being like, turn off the goddamn glasses, turn on, change the background to blue, and then having to keep track of this in that crazy spreadsheet or, anything like that.
There are projects that have done that.
Okay.
Usually not 12,000. I think there's one called DBs, and they did do it that way. But at the same time, they had a supply of I think like 3,000, so it wasn't as crazy. Like they were able to do it manually over a few weeks or whatever. And I think they used software to randomize it on a spreadsheet, and then just a spreadsheet and it's like purple skin, blue glasses, purple. Went through like, okay, what the spreadsheet says the next random thing is. And those layers, and they're like, oh, that hat doesn't line up with the eyebrows, so it's nudge the hat up. And
was that their way of trying to give some inherent like initial value to the project in their eyes, of saying like, oh, we manually kind of did this? Or
I think it was part of the story, but I think it was just that they didn't have the wherewithal to.
Right, they're like, all right, we're just going to manually patch this together, because like I said, and with a project like that and with so many pieces and all that kind of stuff, is that something you're like approached? Somebody says like, hey, as an artist for hire, necessarily somebody said, like, I could say, hey, Nate, I'm interested in, having you and BEARBRAINS like do the art for my series. I want to do XYZ with these kind of combos as total amount of stuff. And then you're pricing them out based off your normal art time or, whatever it is. If you're an artist for hire that you would do for this and provide it to them. Is that kind of like how something like this in a sense could come about or,
Yeah, it can go both ways. In my case, I was approached and hired like on a contract basis. And, there was like extra incentive, like if it sells out, they wouldn't pay you this much. And, but some people have like contracts where like, the royalties are built in.
Okay.
I probably should have done that. But I know some people that have made those agreements, and then in some cases like like I think like Bored Apes, like basically the art was initially anonymous. Like the artist isn't the focal point. It's just this collection is the focal point. This collectability is. But on something like the Cool Cats, where it was basically conceived by the artist and like it was an artist-led project. So instead of like the developers hiring the artist to make a project, it was the artists hiring the developers to make the project come to life. And so it's sort of like who I guess who owns the IP,
right?
Who owns the idea and who's initiating it.
And speaking of that, in a sense, like the IP, because with something like this and with the NFTs generally, so you create these characters, you draw them, it's your art, you do that. They go for sale as unique items. Who, who owns, Space Pogger number, 792?
Right. Yeah, that's another gray area in the space. And it's kind of like all how you set up legally. It's just like when you're like if you're an illustrator and you're licensing your work to somebody, it's like I'm like your contract was going to say like I'm licensing this image to be used on coffee mugs only,
right?
In this geographic area for the next 2 years, and
you need to pay me again if it's used in this market or this,
right? And if you want to buy it outright, that's another $20,000 up front,
right?
Or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So there's those kind of things, and it that doesn't really change it. It's just the medium is different. So. And then there's also the trends of it. So Bored Apes, one of the things that they kind of like set the trend on, they set the trend on a lot of things, was giving away the monetization rights along with the art. So which kind of adds value to that thing where like I can make money off this JPEG. Besides just flipping it, I can also I basically own that image itself, and I can like there's like they're Bored Ape influencers that are more famous than other Bored Apes, and they're licensing their ape as a personality to a talent agency.
Okay, but they're in that circumstance, they're allowed to. They're saying Bored Apes was saying, you buy number 124 and you want to sell T-shirts with this specific ape on it, go for it.
Go for it. Like no restrictions whatsoever. The only thing that Bored Apes the Yuga Labs, the founders retain all rights to is like the logo and the name. So you can't put like
interesting.
If you're selling a Bored Ape shirt, you can't say like put the Bored Ape logo and be like official Bored Ape merchandise.
Okay,
like,
so their logo is
Ape 124 merchandise. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so they're like their specific logo trademark the same way that Nike, the swoosh, whatever is their. You can't sell a shirt with the Nike logo on it. You can't say Bored Apes with their logo, but the artwork specifically, if you bought it, that's yours to do kind of essentially whatever you want or are capable of doing.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure I haven't gone to the fine print on Bored Apes. So I'm sure there's like, I don't want
specific uses. Yeah. And
yeah. You probably don't want to do that. Or they probably wouldn't let you do that. Yeah.
And it was just, Len, is it typical too for something, especially with that high of a floor price that we talked about earlier, like that they're still collecting royalties, because that's, I know you said it's pretty typical to like artists are building in their royalties into it.
Right.
These big ones, these huge ones, are they doing this too? So they're like,
yeah,
I'm making 10%. That just sold for $1 million. We just got another 100K.
Basically, I mean, for the bigger collections, they tend to set like a 5% royalty. That seems more standard. And then some collections they'll incentivize trading by like lowering the royalties, or like be like, we got enough money off the initial sale, so maybe we don't need the high royalties, or like we want to just like once project to really take off. So we'll say at 2.5%. We'll say we're not going to take any royalties until a certain point or something like that, because that's something you can like switch on and off on the OpenC or at the contract level and things like that.
And the person reselling it has to consider, if I'm selling this for $1 million and there's a 10%, I'm going to get, not counting transaction fee, you know, I'm basically going to get 900,000, even though I'm selling it for $1 million, because 100,000 is going to the original content creator, in essence, right? So that factors into, like I said, somebody lowering the royalty might help an aftermarket, because people are going to be paying less in secondary fees.
Exactly.
As the thing continues on.
Right. So then they don't have to list it as high to get that same rate.
Right.
Because of that. But it's if you, depending on what the margin is, maybe it's not the biggest incentive, but it is something that people do. I'm trying to think. I had a train of thought there.
Well, it's just so interesting. Like it's kind of turning, I don't know, the way I see it a little bit is that giving, I kind of mentioned earlier, I feel like it's starting to give a little bit of power back to artists to control themselves or their own art. Now, I said, it doesn't mean that everybody's stuff's going to sell right away. It's going to be hot. It doesn't mean that every NFT is going to be worth $1 gazillion or anything like that, but that it's kind of allowing a way for you to really take control of your own stuff, put it out how you want to put it, charge what you want to charge. You know, if you have a community that is willing to pay $50, $100, $200, $4,000, whatever that is, you're kind of controlling your art specifically and setting your rates and putting it out there. I own original pieces of art of artists that we work with, things like that, because I just fucking love it. And I'm like, I want an original of yours hanging on my wall. Let me buy that. No, it's a lot of money. Do that, but this is a way somebody can kind of make originals and sell originals, and you can own a piece of somebody's art kind of going forward, but the artist can control. I feel like it's just a way, like
there's a lot more flexibility where you're not going through like an art dealer that's setting price or saying things like, if you really think the price should be this, you can say that and just put it out there. I mean, there are still galleries doing things in the space, and like there's definitely room for everybody in it. I know a lot of artists are excited to cut out the middleman in different ways and they'll have that control. But then at the same time, there's an expertise that you're also trading. And, so there are still, I think, places, and then artists that just don't want to deal with too much of the technical side. And, they have people doing that for them, or there is a lot of stuff, but I think there's a big advantage if you really hunker down, learn the ropes of it. Like, it gives you that much more control. And like, there's a new project that just kind of opened up to the public called Manifold, where you can create basically your own smart contract using their service.
Oh, wow.
And you're paying, for instance, on OpenSea, everything, when you're creating an NFT in OpenSea, you're using OpenSea contract. So if you go on a different marketplace like Rarible, that also has a secondary market, anything that's created in OpenSea will say just OpenSea contract.
Okay.
And then you're just kind of lumped in with everybody else that was making stuff on OpenSea, and vice versa. Everybody that was making stuff on Rarible just shows up as Rarible contract on OpenSea. I mean, your wallet's still attached, but the collection is not a collection. But Bored Apes, the Space Poggers, they were created on their own contracts. Okay. So on every marketplace, they're going to show up as their own thing.
Gotcha.
Because that contract was written from scratch.
So, and now you can kind of create your own contract and then still sell it on a marketplace using.
Yeah. So basically, if you own that contract, you can claim that NFT on whatever marketplace.
And what was it called? Manifold or something?
Yeah, manifold.xyz. I mean, there are other ones like Nifty Kit and stuff like that, but I think Manifold's sort of like
is that a Tezos only thing, or?
No, it's Ethereum.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't know how to do it. but you can also you can learn to write your own contracts too. But for a lot of artists, that's a big hurdle. Not technical people, at least not to that degree. I've seen people, there are artists like Joy World that he got into it way early, 2017, 2018. Maybe not that early. Maybe a little later. Maybe 2020. But he saw CryptoKitties and was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to do that. I want to learn all this stuff. So he actually learned how to do his own contract. Oh, wow. He looked at the CryptoKitties contract, copied snippets from that,
right?
And then changed things to that, and then he was minting his own contract from the start because OpenSea didn't exist back then.
Crazy,
yeah, and it totally works because it's good.
It's interesting, and you even talked about too, a lot of people are like, oh, we want to get rid of the middleman. And, as a company that sometimes people, if they want to put you down, they call you a middleman. They're like, Alchemy is a middleman, but like we consider ourselves like a production partner or something, where a middleman, I feel like, doesn't add value, right? Where when you've got these companies or these services, somewhere along the way, whether that's ease of use or whatever it is, they're adding value. The gallery might be getting you, they may be taking a big percentage. They may be getting you a higher, somebody may be bidding higher on it because of their platform or, things like that. So it's like, there's value in those spots, because we hear, like I said, as a company that like we work with the factories overseas, and when somebody's trying to be an asshole, they're like, well, you're just a middleman. I'm like, okay, well, not really, like it's not like we're literally not doing anything, but I feel like that's a way for people, it's got such a negative kind of side to it, or at least that's the way I view it, is like middleman is not adding any actual value along the way.
People. Yeah, they're just somebody skimming, they're forcing themselves in between point A and B and
right
off top. But there are service providers that are adding value one way or another, either by making it easier, and we're actually giving you a platform,
right,
and has a value in itself, because just like there's the Shopify versus Amazon Marketplace or whatever, like you can own everything and put it on Shopify, but you still have to send people to your site. But put something on Amazon, somebody's going to be searching for something on Amazon. You have the right keywords. That's all you need.
Right. And we have a client that does a lot of licensed products, and he's always allowed to sell all those on Amazon because they're officially licensed. And like Amazon brings in all the fucking sales, they have their own website as well. But the marketplace, who also obviously Amazon takes their cut, all that stuff, like is providing such a huge pool of people that are coming in and looking, that it's like you're paying for the service of being on the platform, which is bringing the eyes, which is bumping your sales. That wouldn't happen unless you're spending, I forget we were talking about it, but let's just say Amazon takes like $3 a pin or something that they sell. If you were to advertise on your own on Facebook, Instagram, $3 worth for every pin, like you're probably still not actually going to get the same amount of sales if you advertised that much per, so you're still kind of gaining by being on the platform essentially.
Exactly. And and if you're lucky enough, you could just like flip on the switch and the sales will come in because you have that product that people just want to get. And they're definitely, like if you're on Etsy, they're always, I noticed, over the years, they tinker with different ways of setting ads on the marketplace and try to get people on the front page one way or another. And actually, this reminded me of the whole scandal with OpenC on the front page.
It's like there's always going to be scandals with everything and paid placements. I mean, going back to like the MTV days, how do you think people were getting their videos on? Radio.
Yeah, it's all paywall. Yeah.
You go to the grocery store, there's an end cap. Well, they paid for that. Like literally, in a grocery store, they literally pay for like everything. Like you want to be in the freezer, you're paying for that placement. Walmart. There's all that stuff. That's just the reality of the world. Is like,
right. Just the average person isn't seeing it happen. They're just seeing things and being the things. And,
right. It's like you have to spend money to make money. Sometimes it's just like a reality in certain senses. Like, or if you want to get in front of more people, that's why you have to. That's just life with it. But is there anything else like specifically? Because I want to value your time and you talking to me about all this and hopefully giving people a better idea generally of like what the fucking NFT even is, or like how they can maybe get involved or what to look at. Do you have any things that you suggest of where somebody could maybe start to, somebody's interested, like a forum or check out this website, or what would you suggest for somebody just wanting to kind of scratch the surface,
That's tough. Cause I think back in the day, like OpenC had like an NFT Bible page, but I think that was made like in 2020, and I think by the time I was reading it in early 2020, 2021, it was getting outdated. So I'm sure they might have updated it, but that was kind of like the go-to at the time. But there's so much out there that's like it's really hard to like point you one place. Was not prepared for that one. It's right now it's kind of like, so where do I swim in? I don't know what.
Well, I know it's very much like do your own research, read, because unfortunately, within this space still, because like that's like the Wild West in general, crypto, whatever, like, people shilling things, rug pulls, all the terms that you read on, Reddit and, everywhere else. It's like, there are people that are taking advantage and doing shitty things for sure. But sticking to kind of reputable sites or things like that, or, I talked about like a wallet, like MetaMask is a real popular one. Things like that. What we're going to try, I hope, after we wrap up real quick, is we're going to try and see if I can walk through with you buying, basically, as somebody who has that's on a centralized exchange like Coinbase, right? Which, like a retail kind of item, a lot of people are used to. How I can maybe buy something off of, one of your NFTs, maybe off of OpenC or something like that. And I'll try and like share my experience with that with everybody after, and hopefully I don't get any weird blocks of things, like I just connected my wallet.
Yeah, so they see if they unlocked your wallet.
Yeah, like, because I just tried to connect my wallet, and I was like, as a security feature, I had a 48-hour block on things intentionally, not realizing. But we'll try and run through that. But yeah, in general, people just check it out, look at trusted sources. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, probably is.
Definitely. Yeah. Like, the only times I'd be able to do like a quick flip was like because I knew the person that was like driving the project, and I had owned the previous NFT, so they gave me the early access, and but generally it's been, I just kind of like, I'll just make my money selling my own things, or selling my services or whatever. I'm not an expert at flipping at all.
Oh yeah, and even with crypto flipping, like personally, not something I necessarily suggest. Like, do your own research. Like, if you're the pump and dump groups and things like that, like they are already in it, and by the time that you're jumping in it, you're basically screwed. So don't be thinking, hey, I'm going to join this Discord group, and they're going to tell me that they're going to buy whatever, because those people that are behind the scenes already bought all the shit. And then you're jumping in late, and you're
buying in the dump.
You're buying in the dump part. So like, all that kind of stuff that sounds really exciting, that to make really quick money, realistically, just, do your own research and probably stay away from things that, that sound too crazy,
Yeah. All the good things that have come to me have been through like work.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And just making connections and making networks and learning, and I think just having that aptitude for wanting to learn a bunch of stuff and getting almost dangerously obsessed with it at times, kind of lends to making those moves. And I've definitely made mistakes, but it's so far the upsides outweighed everything.
Yeah, you got to do your own work, you got to do your own research, but it's the same with being an artist. Like, you're not just making money by not doing the art. You have to do the work.
It's still farming as hard as ever, but it's really, that's the thing. It's like there's money being spent, and even though there's gas fees and stuff like that, there's a lot less friction than other ways you make money off your art. And I think it's worth researching for anybody.
Awesome. And where are the best places where you're kind of hanging out online, or for people to find you? Okay,
so I hang out probably the most these days on Twitter. Okay. That's at Nate Bear, NATEBEAR, like that.
Like the sign behind you?
Yeah, like the sign behind me. I also go by BEARBRAINS, so I'm BEARBRAINS on Instagram. I'm bearbrains.eth.
If I want to send you money?
Yeah, if you want to send me money, send it to BEARBRAINS. What's happening? What else? And on OpenC, I'm on BEARBRAINS. So if you go openc.io, I think /BEARBRAINS, you'll probably find one of my pages. Yeah, I have too many collections. Sorry, okay. but there's one account called BEARBRAINS. And that's probably the best places. I also hang out a lot on the Space Poggers Discord.
Okay,
so it's a good place to find me. So that's where I spend a lot of my time.
And then that's spacepoggers.com or Space Poggers NFT.
Yeah, if you go to spacepoggers.com, I believe in the top right when there's a little Discord icon, it'll take you right to the server, and you can say hello to me.
And because I know some of these kinds of collection things, you're owning one as your ticket into these more private things. Is it Space Poggers Discord? You have access if you own one of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's There is a service called collab.land. And basically what you do is you go into the Discord, activate a bot, and then it sends you to a page where you connect your Ethereum wallet. And you basically, it checks to make sure you own that NFT.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then it will unlock certain channels. So there's like, the Pogger, I have the tab open right here, but there is a like a Pogger owner, verified Poggers channel. So only people that own Poggers can talk on that channel.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then, we're working on things like, we're getting a merch store online eventually where like, you can you'll only be able to buy certain merch when your wallet's connected and
like exclusive merch, exclusive things. Like
right. And
basically like not only are you buying the art, you're buying a ticket to something exclusive, in whatever sense, because I know with Bored Apes and things, it's like, oh, I don't know, Steph Curry or Snoop Dogg or whoever the fuck, maybe they're in the Discord, like it maybe probably not, but but you're kind of buying access as well to things.
Right. Yeah. And there's someone like, like maybe there's like a certain events and like, you can have a voice channel that's private on Discord, or, like with the Bored Apes, like they have a merch store that you can only get if you own the ape and things like that.
Gotcha.
Different experiences. And, where, there's games where you can only access it with the token. But the great thing about it is because it's like this accessible token on the blockchain, just having that wallet kind of becomes a key into things. Like I had a friend that was getting into it and he was like, I want to set up an account on OpenSea, but I didn't see where to sign up. And I was like, oh yeah, you have to use your wallet to log in. Yeah, that's the only thing.
That's a whole nother barrel of monkeys too. In general, the wallet thing is so confusing. But so basically, like you can use, like I said, you owning a Space Pogger can be your key because you're linking it. You're verified that you own that.
Yeah,
and that gives you the access to these other things that you guys will be potentially offering down the line.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to plug or hit up before we sign off and then kind of attempt to for me to buy an NFT?
But now that's it. Just check out spacepoggers.com. Check out natebear.art. That's my page, the portal. So all the things I do outside of Space Poggers.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I'll have links below on how to get everywhere for all your different projects and everything.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Nate.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Creative Labs by Alchemy with your host, Greg Kerr. Are you interested in making enamel pins, washi tape, patches, acrylic keychains, and more? Get in touch and create with us at alchemymerch.com.